Hi. It's Friday. I think it's the 8th of May. We're delighted to welcome back Shem Allenson, who's going to give us a presentation about the introduction to common law, which is really about how we can reclaim some lost rights. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times right now. The country is under pretty much house arrest. A lot of people are asking questions about how we can get out of the situation. I know a lot of the people on the line are very concerned about the prospect of having to mandatorily sort of vaccinate their children. And we're looking at how we can reclaim some lost rights, not just about vaccinations, but also about all sorts of other things, where we live, where we choose to live, where we choose to send our children to school, paying taxes, the banking industry, and all sorts of things. So in this sort of first in a series of webinars, Shem Allenson has gratefully given her time to allow us to see what these rights are and what we can do about reclaiming them. So welcome, Shem.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have you on board.
Thank you very much. Can I ask, actually, can everybody turn their mic off unless they're actually speaking, because there's a lot of background noise. Yeah. So if everybody can turn their mic off. If you wish to ask questions, then if it's a short one, I'm very happy for you to ask questions. And in fact, I've got my little prompt here who's going to ask me some questions as well, I've no doubt. If it's a longer question, perhaps you would save it till the end, and then I'll be very happy to answer your questions at the end. Okay?
Shem, we will have to pass the hosting to you to share your screen and everything.
Okay. I am fairly new to using this equipment, guys, so just bear with us while
when you're ready to share it. At the minute, we're still sort of, admitting people in.
Okay. Right. So should we hold fire a few minutes just while we're
hold fire for about 60 seconds or so? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So do you just want to introduce us to yourself?
Yes. Right. Welcome, everybody. I'd just like to say thank you to both of you for hosting this before we start, because I really appreciate you doing this. There is nothing worse than having to prepare all the material and deal with all the emails and things as well. So thank you ever so much for doing that. I really appreciate that, because that's a huge burden off me. My name is Shem Allenson. I'm actually a registered dietitian and clinical nutritionist, who haven't already met me. And I live and work in the very beautiful Isle of Man. I'm very fortunate. It's lovely over here. If you've never come across the Isle of Man, it's somewhere in the Irish Sea, roughly halfway between Liverpool and Belfast. And we actually have our own little government here. I'm 57. I've been a registered dietitian and clinical nutritionist for getting on for 40 years, would you believe? I also work, I've got a variety of different hats, so I'm not just a dietitian. I actually do quite a bit of data analysis. I do IT training. I worked in the prison education system for a while, which was absolutely fascinating. I'm also a keen cook, and I'm a keen organic gardener as well. I now work in private practice in the Isle of Man, and pretty much I'm a gut and bowel specialist and spend a lot of time dealing with patients who've got gut and bowel problems. I did work in the NHS for quite a number of years, and in my last NHS post I was the chief dietitian at the John Brown in Oxfordshire, and I left that post to go into private practice. And when I went into private practice, I can tell you it was a massive shock to my system, because I realised a lot of what I'd actually been told in NHS was actually not really the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And that the model of medicine I've been working with wasn't perhaps the model of medicine that is actually the most effective. And I think a lot of you will probably identify with this. If you are within what I call the woke brigade, because I now consider myself to be wide awake, you will realise actually that a lot of what you're coming across from mainstream is actually not the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, to put it mildly. Now, when I worked in medicine, I realized that a lot of what I was being told about drugs when I was looking at clinical studies and so forth, a lot of them weren't really reporting the truth. And in fact, when studies were industry sponsored, they were not even close to the truth. When I left medicine and started getting into private practice, I realized the problem was even bigger than I thought. And about 7 months ago, I met a lovely man called Courtney Heading, who is a common law and health advocate. And he introduced me to common law, and he introduced me to taking back my sovereignty. And what a shock to the system, because I realized actually that the sort of fraud that goes on in medicine actually goes on just about everywhere else as well. And in some instances, the fraud is so unbelievable that it just is absolutely staggering that the fraud is as unbelievable as it actually is. So this is how I've got into looking at the work of the common law court. This is how I got interested in common law, and this is how I decided I was going to take back my sovereignty. Okay, have we got everybody in now, Richard? Oh, I can't hear you. I've lost. Can you guys hear me?
Just 1 second.
Yeah, so I think
yes.
we have everybody in now.
Okay.
I've just made you the host.
Okay, right. So if I put my PowerPoint presentation on now, can you actually all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet, right. How am I going to share that? Remind me how I share that.
Picture review and your solicitor.
Sorry, say that again, Richard.
I said we can see a very beautiful picture of you and your solicitor.
She's not really my solicitor. Yeah, how do I get the PowerPoint presentation to the front? Just remind me again.
At the bottom.
There is a green button, share.
Share screen. Oh, share screen.
Yes.
Ah, I beg your pardon. Right, here we go. Just bear with me, guys. Right, okay. Can you all see that? Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. That's a yes. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So let me see if I can. So can you all see that? Quick thumbs up, guys, if you can see that for me. Yes. Okay. Lovely. Thank you, folks. Right. So this is part A of 3, and I have to put this. This is for entertainment purposes only, and I cannot be held responsible for errors, although I have to say if there are any errors, I will do my utmost best to come back and notify you if I find that there's any errors later on. Please do your own research, and I will try and point you in the direction of where you can find additional information from. Why am I doing this? The main reason I'm doing this is because of an insane desire to find out the truth and to pass the truth on to everybody else. Please don't let some of what I'm going to tell you depress you, because actually there is very good news about all of this, and the good news about this is that you have a lot more control over your life than you think you have. Once you take back your sovereignty and you realize the standing that you have under common law, you will realize that you are actually an all-powerful being, and I do mean that in every sense of the word. So any questions before we start? Is there anything anybody quickly wants to ask me before I start talking about who owns the planet? No? Okay. Right. Well, the first thing I want to just briefly talk about who owns the earth, and the reason I want to discuss that is because it helps to put into context everything else that's actually going on. So in terms of ownership, the Queen, we think, owns about 16% of the planet, which is a staggering amount. King Salman of Saudi Arabia owns the next biggest chunk, and the Vatican owns the next biggest chunk, and so on. Okay. So it's quite interesting at looking at that, because that puts some of this into context. Now, what's actually more important for all of us is who controls the earth, and therefore who has the most control or influence on politics. And it's not quite the same when you look at that. The group, if you like, that has the most control I think from my research is possibly the City of London Corporation, otherwise known as the Crown. Okay. Now, I've tried to find out who the City of London Corporation is, and it's actually very difficult to find out who the City of London Corporation is, but they do comprise lots of elite. The Pope is certainly part of it, the Vatican is certainly part of it, the Rothschilds are, and the Queen is, and I dare say lots of the other elite as well. So a lot of what we're talking about today, when I say they, really I am referring to the City of London Corporation or the Crown Corporation. Okay. Now, the richest people on the earth, the richest, less than 1%, actually own more than half of all the Earth's land. Just give that a thought for a second. So less than 1% of the population of the Earth own more than half of all the Earth's land. And they are becoming richer at an exponential rate, and we are becoming poorer at an exponential rate. And most of this has been achieved by fraudulent use of something called the Strawman. Okay. And the City of London Corporation are the people behind it. So the poorest 99%, so that's you guys and me, unless we have any billionaires in the audience, I doubt it very much. If we've any billionaires out there, then this probably doesn't apply to you, but for the rest of us minions, very shortly, if things carry on as they're going to, we will own nothing. We will have no land, no housing, no vehicles. We will have zero control over our lives, our bodies, our data, our kids, their education, your work or their work. Okay? And if you're in any doubt about that, there are some articles I would like you to have a read of. The first one, perhaps, to have a read of, if you haven't already done so, have you all listened to the Strawman video? If you've seen them, you've listened to the Meet Your Strawman video. Okay, so in the next session, I will be talking a little bit more about the Strawman and in some more depth. But today I wanted just to try and give a little bit of context. So that is one of the first things I would say to have a look at. The next thing perhaps to have a look at is something called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars is a video that was put together based on some material that was found on a photocopier. And I would like you all to have a listen to that. I've actually put a link in here somewhere for you to go and find that. You will also find a link to that on the Isle of Man Common Law Court website under the links page, and if you just scroll down to Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, you will find that there. Also, it would be worth you having a look at Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Now, those are, you'll find those on the United Nations as PDFs, and I would urge all of you to have a look at them and read them. Now, when you read them, they do read as though they're all about sustainable development. They sound quite nice. You know, it makes it all, what's the word? You know what I mean? They all sound very doable and very flowery, and it's lovely.
Glossy, shiny.
Glossy, shiny, yeah. However, if you read it and actually think about what they're saying, and then ask yourself, how are they going to achieve this? You realize that drastic measures are going to be needed to actually achieve it, and then people aren't going to do it willingly. So, for example, some of the things that they're discussing in these agendas are take all the property into public ownership. What they really mean is take all the property into the ownership of the elite so they can manage us like cattle. So make no mistake, they want to take your property off you. The same thing applies to education for your kids. They want to take your kids off you, and they want to be educating all the kids. What they want to do is they want to make good little slaves for the tax system who are obedient. They do not want well-educated kids who understand the law and who are good critical thinkers. So I would urge you to spend some time looking at Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, read Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, And also in the middle of the screen there, you'll see I put a link to a webinar or a sort of a presentation on social control in China. And this is well worth listening to as well, because this talks about how China is today and how they've got there and the level of social control that actually goes on in China. The social control in China is so extreme that everything that they do on a day-to-day basis is monitored and tracked. If you disagree with the state system, your credit score is reduced. Okay? If your credit score is reduced and you say things against the government, you cannot get your children into the school that you want your children into, and so on. And there are so many things happening in China that I think I could do a whole webinar just on that, and it would actually frighten you. It really is quite horrific. Everything from taking organs illegally from the poor to the rich, to taking children off people. Sorry, I think it's somebody else wanting in here. No. So there's a lot to have a look at there, and it really is quite scary when you listen to it. So when you listen to that and you realise that, sorry, I've got a little thing flashing up here, and I don't know if it's more people wanting in, Richard. Can you tell? No, I don't know. Okay. Right.
I think it could just be somebody who's using the chat. That's all.
Oh, okay. Right.
Don't worry. We're taking care of it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I would urge you to be having a look at all of that and ask yourself: is China really the way you want to go? Because if China is not the way you want to go, then there is actually, in my opinion, only one clear solution. And that solution is that we start taking back our sovereignty and we start taking responsibility. Okay? Right, so let's do a quick recap. If you've listened to the Strawman video, you will see it talks about what a legal fiction is. Now, a legal fiction is your strawman, and it is a dead entity that the authorities use to con you into believing that you owe money or to give away your property, so your land, your car, your kids, your freedoms and your rights. It is an entity that is used to extract taxes and fines and money from you. You are not your legal fiction, okay? Once you take ownership and withdraw your consent, it can then no longer be used against you. So what I'm hoping to do in these series of lectures is teach you exactly how to do that, okay? Now, back to the Crown Corporation again, something that's quite interesting is what people don't realise is the Crown owns and controls the vast majority of the world. And the Crown Corporation owns Great Britain, Canada, Australia. They own the Bank of England. I believe they did own the US Reserve. However, I think Donald Trump is doing his best to take that back into the hands of the people. Whether he's fully achieved that, I'm not actually sure. The World Bank, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, are owned by the Crown. The European Union is done indirectly or directly owned by the Crown. Okay. All the various cartels and corporations across the earth are owned by the Crown. Africa, China and India are also owned by the Crown. And I think from my reading, I've also decided that at the moment, China may even own California and Hawaii. Yeah, believe it or not. And who owns China? Possibly the Rothschilds. I can't actually swear to any of that. I'm reading up on it. I'm trying to find out, and it is actually tremendously difficult to find out who owns exactly what. Okay, so how did the 99% lose so much? Well, the first way that we've lost so much is by deception and by the use of fraudulent contracts, and I intend to teach you about that, because if you can spot the deception, and actually it's quite easy to spot once you know how, you can take a stand against it and do something to actually sort the problem. They use statutory, maritime or admiralty law against you. And something else about these 1% of the global elite is they control most of the world's media. Most people don't realize this. Because they control most of the world's media, they are actually controlling just about every word on a written page or a viewed web page that you and I see on a day-to-day basis. And they have been doing this for decades. So we have been programmed for 20, 30, 40 years. We really are being programmed. And they are telling us what to think. They are telling us what to feel. They are telling us what a typical family should be. Okay. Now, statutory law, I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute, doesn't apply to sovereign free men and women. So there are ways of actually getting out of a lot of this. Let's start by actually looking at jurisdiction. Okay. So have you come across jurisdiction before, guys? Is this a new topic to you? Sorry, somebody's putting up a blank piece of paper in front of the screen. Margaret, I can't actually read anything on that. So I don't know what you're trying to say there. You're just blocking off a screen. No, okay. Jurisdiction. So the common law courts are the highest courts in the land, second only to the jurisdiction of the creator. So I'll show you a little, I've done a little pyramid diagram, Richard and Ella, to show you what jurisdiction is, because I think last time a couple of people were saying, I kind of get it, but maybe I need something visual for you to have a look at. Now, common law dates back to Magna Carta, and it forms the basis of all the laws, statutes, acts and codes we have today. Common law is the law for the people, by the people, and you have the right to use common law and the common law courts today, and you can use them to great effect once you know how, and I aim to teach you how. So here's my little chart. Hopefully this will make things a little clearer for you. So in terms of hierarchy, the creator is at the top of the pyramid, and everything that the creator says has superior jurisdiction, if you like, okay? And it doesn't actually matter whether the creator is God, the creator is Allah, or whoever you decide it's going to be. Second to the creator is the common law court. Now, the common law court is the court of you and I. It's the court of the people. And when something is tried in the court of the people, it is above everybody else. Important thing to know, because if you know that, you can take on anything else. Okay? Living men and women come next, and living men and women are above the statutory courts. Now, by living men and women, I mean people like myself who've claimed back their sovereignty by joining the common law court, by actually listing your birth on the common law court website and getting yourself a common law court card. I don't know if you can you see that? That's my common law court card. Now, by listing myself on the common law court website and getting my card, that's moved me from statutory jurisdiction up into common law court, common law jurisdiction. And that means they have to deal with me within the common law jurisdiction. So in other words, the statutory courts can't tell you what to do anymore. Okay. Any questions on that, folks? Yeah, okay. Right, now the statutory courts, I put the word courts in single speech marks because they're not really courts. And the reason that they're not courts is because there are not your peers sitting in judgment on you. The people who appear in a statutory court are all members of the same team by yourself. So if you go into the courts to take on government, everybody within that courtroom is on the same team apart from you. So you're never going to get proper justice. Okay, give that a thought for a second. Now, everything that is to do with common law court or common law is lawful. Everything to do with the statutory courts is legal, and those two terms get confused. So because something is lawful does not necessarily mean, or it does, anything that's lawful applies to everybody. Everything that's legal isn't necessarily lawful. Okay, and in fact the statutory jurisdiction have now got so many problems that we've pretty much decided that everything that's legal is actually now unlawful. Would you believe? Yeah. So the statutory courts deal with you by the use of the legal fiction. So if you like, they force you to accept the position of a legal fiction or a straw man. And because you are being forced to accept the position of a legal fiction, they can deal with you. Okay. Actually, do you mind just popping this light on up here for me? It's just gone a bit too dark to see my script here. Just bear with me, guys. Okay. So if you're in the statutory courts for something, they are inherently unfair because the other players within the statutory court are the Crown Corporation employees, if you like. So the judge, the opposing team, your solicitor, all are paid by the Crown Corporation. Okay. The first duty of your solicitor is actually to the court and not to you. And this is why when many people go into court, they lose. Okay, they don't realize that the courts are actually stacked against them. Okay. The other thing is that even though you employ a solicitor, because his first duty is to the court, it is not in his interest to tell you that there is another option other than attending a statutory court. So often you go into a statutory court thinking you're going to get justice and you will get anything but. Okay, awful. It's absolutely terrible what goes on. Now, if you look over to the left of my little pyramid, you will also see that we've now got fake courts. And they really are fake courts because they're actually nothing to do with the court system at all. They're nothing to do with either court system. They are actually to do with council bills. So if you get, for example, a summons for a council bill, the chances are it's actually going to be seen in an office that's hired for the day with a person who's hired for the day just to deal with that separately. It's actually nothing to do with the courts. And you can soon find that out by phoning up the courts. If you get one of the fake court appearance requests, phone up the real courts and see if they know anything about it. If they don't, then it's one of the fake courts that are trying to persuade you into paying a fine. Okay? And it's not a real fine at all. It's not a real court at all. So actually there's no lawful basis on which you should have to pay it. And many areas within the UK are now using this to try and get people to pay things like council tax, speeding tickets, and so on. Okay?
Shem?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a situation like that where I think it was Westminster City Council were trying to get us for council tax on a property that we didn't own and have never owned.
Oh dear.
So we literally had to go to the court to fight it. And when we spoke to the court people, the actual court staff, they said, no, you know, this company has literally just rented the court for the day. It's not really a court. We didn't get to see a judge or anything, or a magistrate.
You don't go even into the room, the courtroom or anything.
Yes, this kind of thing is now going on regularly, and it is a con, and it is taking advantage of vulnerable people and not so vulnerable people, and making them think, oh my goodness, I owe money, I've got to pay it or I'll end up in jail. And actually it's nothing to do with the court system whatsoever. So if you get any of these fake summonses, try and determine where they come from. And what I will do is in the next couple of sessions is I will give you the tools to enable you to challenge them. Okay? Because this is happening more and more often, and it's because the statutory courts don't want to deal with any of this, because really they shouldn't be dealing with it anyway. In fact, the statutory courts aren't really courts, so there's a lot of the stuff that they deal with that they shouldn't be dealing with. But yes, it does happen very, very regularly. Now, the good news is if you list yourself under common law court and take ownership of your legal fiction, okay, you move yourself from statutory jurisdiction into the common law jurisdiction, those people can no longer deal with you. Okay? They don't have the authority to deal with you. They don't have the jurisdiction to deal with you. And I'll be teaching you how you can get out of it. Okay? Right, let's move on to the next one. So a little bit more on jurisdiction. Sorry, I could really have done with a bigger screen for this. I'm having to move everything around my screen, but not to worry. So a little bit more on jurisdiction. What jurisdiction is it's the right of a court to hear a particular case based on the scope of its authority over the type of case and the parties to the case. So just so you've got a little bit more context for this, okay? So common law is based on case law, and it is based on the outcome of previous court cases. Now, under common law, when there is a proper court case, and these are the real courts, when there is a proper court case under common law, the outcome of that case is decided by the jury, and there's always a jury in a proper court. So there's a jury of 12 in a common law court, and the 12 members of the jury will listen to both sides of the case, and then they will decide a verdict. That is a proper court, okay? Under a statutory court, which isn't really a court, okay? Statutory law, also called admiralty law and maritime law, is actually all the same thing. It isn't really law because it isn't based on a jury trial. In fact, statutes, acts, codes and regulations, most people don't realise this, but they're not laws at all. They are rules, if you like, created or adapted by the legal profession to try and control and regulate us, and they require your consent. Okay. Common law, which by the way I forgot to mention, common law is also sometimes known as universal law or natural law, same thing. Okay. Common law is always decided on the outcome of the jury. Statutory law really is statutes, acts, codes and regulations decided, created and adapted by the legal profession, probably consulting with politicians and so forth. So the two things are really quite different. Statutory law requires our consent, okay? So if you can get out of the statutory jurisdiction into the common law jurisdiction and you withdraw your consent, this removes their control over you. Okay. Now, it's not quite as simple as that because there are actually lots of other jurisdictions as well. So, for example, there is canon law. Now, canon law is law to do with the church. That's actually a completely separate jurisdiction. And there's family law. There's all sorts of different laws, left, right, and centre. And lots of different jurisdictions. And those different jurisdictions, if you want to know more about them, you'll probably need to just do a little bit of research. I mean, I discovered actually this last week, which is very interesting, that those people who, I don't know if we've got anyone from Australia. Do we have anyone from Australia here? No. If we have anyone from Australia, then if you think you are a citizen of Australia, the truth is you're actually not. You're a citizen of Norfolk Island, because the jurisdiction of Australia is actually based on Norfolk Island, and that is because the continent of Australia, which is actually called Terra Australis, belongs to the native peoples. So the lies that we've all been told are truly astronomical. Okay, I'm sorry, someone's just coming in. Okay, so common law, briefly summarised. So if I was to summarise this, common law really is law that is decided by the people in a proper court with a jury. Okay. The main constraints of common law are cause no harm or loss, be honourable in all your dealings, and maintain the peace. So common law is based on the outcome of cases rather than rules of and regulations that have been written down for guidance. Okay. The other thing about common law is common law has existed long before the existence of the state. And that means that it applies to people everywhere on planet Earth. So it actually doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't matter what county you're in. It doesn't matter what continent you're on. The basic rules of common law apply to every man and woman and child everywhere. Okay? Because those, if you like, those laws, the natural laws, the universal laws, existed long before the state did. So if we want out of the statutory law, we can get out of the statutory law. Okay. Now, the knowledge I've gained over the last 6 or 7 months by a massive amount of reading, I have to say, a massive amount of webinar watching and talking to John Smith at Commonwealth Court and talking to Courtney Heading, has enabled me to save myself somewhere in the region of £50,000. I kid you not. I've had all my taxes and my mortgage lawfully wiped, okay, lawfully wiped, £50,000 worth, because all of them were unlawful. That is how corrupt the system actually is. It's got to the point where just about every statute, act, code and regulation in existence, if not everyone, is completely unlawful. And we are being fleeced at every point, okay? So when you take back your sovereignty, you can have all those things lawfully wiped. You will have a lot more money in your own pocket and your sweat equity will be yours. All right. Okay, so you'll get a lot more control over your life, basically. So, hold on. That's it. So what's the difference between legal and lawful? I've mentioned it briefly, but just to go over it again, because it's actually quite important and it will give you context for the next couple of sessions. Lawful, if something is lawful, that pertains to common law, okay, and that means it's valid for everyone, okay. So murder is unlawful, theft is unlawful in every jurisdiction. These are laws, okay, although you might note by now that apparently theft is not unlawful if you're a banker or if you're a mortgage company. Yeah. Okay. So if it's lawful, it applies basically to everyone. Okay. The word legal pertains only to the statutory jurisdiction. So for example, it is a legal requirement to pay your income tax. However, it is not a lawful requirement to pay your income tax. Okay, if that makes sense. So you could say, you may, for example, to give you another example, if you get a form through the door and it says to you on this form, it is a legal requirement for you to give us census information. We need to know how old you are, how many kids you've got, this kind of thing. And it will say on there, this is a legal requirement for you to complete this, or you may get up to 6 months in jail. That may be legal, but it's not actually lawful. Under common law, it's not enforceable. And in fact, they're using criminal coercion if they're threatening you. Okay. And this is how the statutory jurisdiction will often operate. They will use criminal coercion to threaten you to abide by their rules. So not only have you been dumped under the statutory jurisdiction as a straw man without your consent or your knowledge, but then they are threatening you to stay there by using criminal coercion. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any questions, guys? It's probably a good point to ask if there's any questions. It's actually quite shocking, isn't it? It really is quite shocking when you realise the extent of what is actually going on. Now, 300 years ago, we were paying hardly any taxes at all. And since then, we have developed taxes for everything. And we've even got taxes on our taxes. So, for example, if you're like me and you're sort of pushing pension age, you realise that you've been taxed on your wages, and then you make inquiries about how much your pension is going to be, and you realise they're actually going to tax that as well. So they're taxing you on it twice. You know, so we've now got taxes on our taxes. We've got dozens and dozens of taxes, and these are really designed to fleece us of every single penny. Okay. And by the way, if you think that you should be paying taxes, I don't know what your thought is on taxes. Many people, when I discuss this with them, they say, but you know, if I don't pay my road tax, who pays for the roads? You know, who pays for all of these things? People think that for taxes, then the roads won't get built. Okay, let me put your mind at rest. First of all, when they create your straw man, what they're actually doing is they are, initially when the straw man is created and the child's birth is registered, what they are doing is they are creating some special bonds. Now they're called strawman bonds or treasury bonds, and I know these do exist because I know a lady who used to buy and sell them on the stock markets, so they definitely do exist. Each person has strawman bonds worth millions. Sometimes they're worth hundreds of millions, and this fact has been hidden from us. So governments tap into this money and they use it. So what we pay in taxes is actually the tip of the iceberg. It's actually a relatively small amount compared to what they've already taken off us and they already have access to. Okay, so you can be absolutely sure that just because your birth was registered and the treasury bonds or the strawman bonds were created, you have probably paid many, many times over for everything that you will ever use. Okay, the point is that the statutory jurisdiction is trying to fleece you for even more and more and more. And this is now why less than 1% of the Earth's population, i.e. the elite, own more than 50% of the Earth. They've done it by deception. They've taken it off you, and they've done most of it by unlawful financial transactions and by fraud and by the illegal use of the straw man. Okay. So let's talk. Sorry, yes.
Is there anywhere I can find out more information about the straw man bonds?
I'm actually going to tell you more about the straw man next time.
Okay.
I would say at this stage, don't investigate your straw man bond. Okay, I have been investigating mine, and remember I'm 6 or 7 months ahead of you, and you need to really know what you're doing before you start looking into that, because you can soon get yourself into difficulty. It is not something that you can go and take ownership of because they won't let you. It's not quite that straightforward. There are ways to do it, but the ways to do it are not clear-cut and they are not straightforward. So my advice to you would be learn the basics first, and then maybe in 6 months, 8 months time, then you could start looking into that. But by then, I think, I do actually think within 6 to 8 months, we're going to see some massive changes in society, because already there are huge signs of people fighting back. And we really do need we need people to fight back, because where is your money going? Okay.
Can you hear me there, Shem?
Yes, Richard.
Yeah. Aaron, it is.
Oh, sorry, Aaron. I beg your pardon, Aaron. Fire away.
Yes, yeah. I've been fighting this for years, and I've been arrested many times, probably about 4 times.
Yeah.
And I spend probably on the time scale between 1 hour to 5 hours in there.
Yeah.
And then they have to let me go. I don't give any name, don't give any address.
Yeah.
Just, car tax and.
So you're fighting all your taxes, are you?
No, not at the minute. But I have done previously over the years with car taxes. And
yes.
Parking fines, and I've went in there. I've recorded. I've actually went to the bailiff offices.
Yeah.
Recorded the meeting, and
the secret, Aaron, is to not get into court in the first place, because
yes, it is, yeah.
If you go and play in their pen,
they're
all on the opposing team. So what I hope to teach you is how not to go and play in their pen. Okay.
Yeah, don't use the name. Don't use the name. The name, sticks and stones may hurt you, but names. But yeah.
The best way to do it is actually get good at writing your letters and to know how to write your letters, and that's what I hope to teach you over the next couple of sessions, is how to take them on, how to word it, because I've done it and I've been successful. I have to say I haven't done it all myself. I've actually done it with a lot of help from the Common Law Court. They have been absolutely fantastic helping me.
Yeah, I've been using Freeman of the Land. That's been going for years. Yeah, that's where I've had all the templates. And
the reason I would say use Common Law Court is because everything in Common Law Court is tried and tested, and it's all based on case law. And when you challenge anything in government, you can actually say to them, here is a case. So here is a case that voids all statutes, acts and codes. Okay?
Yeah.
They will not take on the people, because the law that's produced by the common law is the court of the people. They cannot take on the people, and the reason they can't take on the people is because it's the people that gave them their authority.
Yeah.
You think
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. It's us that gave the Queen her powers. She's abused them, admittedly, but we gave her the powers.
Yeah.
We gave the Crown Corporation the authority to have the courts and so forth. We give the police their authority. Indirectly, they get their authority from us. So they cannot challenge us because we're the ones that gave them their authority. And once you realise this, you realise actually that you have a lot more power and a lot more control than you think you have.
You do. You do.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would say, don't go and play in their pen. Learn to write good letters and learn how to challenge them. So what I hope to be doing is teaching you how to challenge them, and you challenge them on things like whether they have the authority, whether they have the jurisdiction, whether they have the consent, whether they have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to you more about these things, whether they have a valid invoice. Because would you believe some of the stuff you're being sent is not even a valid invoice? It absolutely is completely invalid, and you can challenge it just on that. If you know how, you can just challenge it just on that. There isn't even a pound sign on some of these so-called invoices, and that makes them completely unlawful. So if you know how to challenge them, it's actually quite easy. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing that you have to deal with that is the toughest is when you're challenging government. A lot of the people who work for government, they are very good. Most of the people who work for government are very good people. They're people like you and me. And they have been told by their bosses that they accept this and they're not to accept this. They don't understand the law. And so some of them get a bit antsy when you start saying, but actually, that's not the law. And you will get a few people actually saying, you know, you have to pay or you will go to prison and things like that. So I've always tried to take the opportunity to educate them at the same time. You must remain in honour when you write to people. So that means you must always be polite. You need to be polite, factual, try not to upset people. If you get inappropriate responses back, remind them that their response is inappropriate, but remain in honour at all times, because by doing so, it gives you a lot better standing under common law. Under common law, you have to remain in honour at all times. Okay? So the people that you are dealing with, the people on the ground floor, or if you like, the people on the shop floor within government, most of them don't know the difference between statutes, acts, codes, and law. They have no idea. So it's up to you and I to educate them. The people at the top of the departments may do, and certainly the people at the top of government definitely do. They are aware of what goes on. Now, I have had letters going to all and sundry throughout the Isle of Man government. I started off with, you know, people on the ground floor, if you like, and I've worked my way right up to the Attorney General and have had letters going to the Attorney General's office. And if you know how to challenge them, you can challenge them on everything. The Attorney General's office has now given up writing to me, so I haven't even had a summons to court because they were not able to respond to my letters and prove that they had authority, jurisdiction, consent, contract, valid invoices, and so forth. So once you know how to challenge them, it is actually really quite easy. Okay.
Wow.
Not as, yeah, I have to say John Smith has been a phenomenal help to me in doing this, and same with Courtney, because without their assistance I would never have been able to do it, because there is just so much to learn. But my aim as an educator, I aim to teach you lot, and I hope that you will be able to go and do the same and take on these things. Okay.
Excuse me, Shem.
Sorry, carry on. Yes.
Hi, I'm Rain. I'm in California. I have a question.
Yes.
I was actually videotaping my friend who was attacked by a policeman, and then I got attacked by a policeman. Now, at the time it happened, we knew enough. We knew that Strawman. We knew it was contract. Didn't know a lot because it's kind of hidden in there. But anyway, I got beat up and arrested and kidnapped for videotaping. They destroyed the videotape evidence. I did ask for it. I asked to look at it because there were like 18 policemen. So I asked to look at it because I had figured they would probably destroy it. Now, when I went to court, I actually conditionally accepted. I knew enough to say that I accept all charges on the condition that they verify it under oath or affirmation and penalty of perjury. And they started threatening me, and they arrested me again and put me in jail. And I I don't know if I accidentally contracted while I was in jail or not, but when I kept trying to accept it, they just kept ignoring me. And I want to know if, so what I did was at the end, I walked out. I tried to fire the attorney knowing that he's an agent of the court. And what I was trying to do was move it through my court, because I knew that I was still bringing my court in front of their court, or whatever you want to call it.
It sounds like you were doing the right thing.
In the wrong place.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you cannot guarantee that all the players that we come up against are going to behave according to the rules. There is always going to be a few rogue policemen. There is always going to be a few rogue judges. There is always going to be a few dodgy courts and so forth. But the thing is, the more of us that push for this, the more it's likely to work. And now we do have very good people out there in all of these positions who are saying, enough is enough, we have got to stop this. So for example, Anthony Stansfeld, who you will know as the Thames Valley Crime Commissioner, whatever his full title is, who's the head of policing in the British Isles, he is very, very much in favour of bringing back common law, and he is really trying to sort out corruption within the police force. We have judges who are very, very good, who've come back and said, yes, we need to go back to a more common law-based system. Equally, we have certain judges who are completely and utterly corrupt. One will remain nameless, but there is one completely and utterly corrupt judge who has allowed Lynn Thayer to be arrested. Now, Lynn Thayer, if any of you have not read up on the Lynn Thayer case, I would urge you to have a read of it. Lynn Thayer came up with an absolutely fantastic, she's a chemist, she came up with a fantastic cure for cancer, and it works, and it gets about a 70% success rate. It is so successful in treating cancer, you would think the world would be saying, use it for everybody, get rid of chemotherapy, this should be our first course of action. They've done some very, very good clinical studies on this stuff. It's called GC Math. And SmithKline Beecham, I believe, this is my personal opinion from what I've read, I believe they bribed a judge to have Lynn Thayer thrown in jail, extradited to France on no charges. She has since been released a couple of times and then arrested again. To date, she has still not been charged with anything. So we cannot say that all police are lawful, all the judge and the judicial system abide by the rules and so forth. But what I can tell you is the more of us that hold them to account, the better. And part of actually taking back your sovereignty is telling these people that you're going to hold them to account. So we'll talk more about that later. You have to hold individuals to account for their behavior.
All right, then may I ask you again? So what I ended up walking out, because at the end of it I realized, I mean, they're all corrupt. I just walked out. So there's still a warrant out for me. What I'd like to do is know is if when I did it, I knew about not being in dishonor, but when I'm dealing with frauds, I'm like, the most honorable thing I can do is walk away from these people instead of continue. I'd rather them come and kidnap me than voluntarily give my consent for them to kidnap me. So what I'm asking is there a way for me, once I register with the common law, that I can address this through the common law court still because of the harm they've done?
You can, but the problem is enforcing it. Now, at the moment, our numbers are building up very, very rapidly, and they are building up so rapidly that we now have 108 countries who've joined up with the common law court. We also have ex-military and ex-police and current military and current police who are now members of the common law court. So it is only a matter of time before there are sufficient of us to go out there and arrest these crooked people. Okay. In the meanwhile, what we have to do is remain in honor, write them letters, say that they are liable in their private individual capacities, and that eventually we will be coming for them. Okay. Now, I know that sounds like wishful thinking, but we are getting there. We are getting there. Okay. So, right, if I can move on, because there's a few other things to go through, and we'll talk more about that question. We'll talk a bit more about that question later. So, joinder. Let's talk about joinder next, because this brings us on nicely to the topic of joinder. What is it? When you talk to the police or the courts, trying to create a contract with you. And that's called joinder. The word joinder comes from the word join. If they can't create joinder with you, lawfully, they can't arrest you or do anything to you. Okay, so they will be trying their utmost best to create joinder. Now, in the case of the police, when the police stop you, one of the ways that they try to create joinder is they will say to you things like, you were going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Do you understand? Okay, the words "do you understand" are legalese. Now, it is their way of saying, do you understand me? Do you stand under me on this matter? Okay, so when a police "do you understand," he means, do you stand under me? And if you say yes, because you think you are saying yes, I understand, you have just contracted. Okay, so it's very easy to get you to contract if you're a policeman, if you don't know. So if the police stop you for something minor like that, what you should perhaps say to them is, I do not wish to contract with you. I do not answer questions. And if they're still persistent, I would probably say something like, I am a living woman standing under the jurisdiction of the common law court. I do not wish to contract with you. I do not answer questions. Okay. If they persist, then I would say something like, are you trying to criminally coerce me into taking the position of a legal fiction? Criminal coercion is an offence. It is an offence for which you can get, for example, 7 years. Okay. So knowing how to answer the questions is actually quite important. Never try to intimidate them or talk down to them. It doesn't work. They just get, they just get aggro. So just stand up for yourself. Be assertive. So I am a living woman. I'm a living man. I do not wish to contract with you. I do not answer questions. They might say, I want your name. Give me your name. Your answer to that should be, am I obliged to? Because actually, under common law, you're not obliged to give them your name. Okay? You're not obliged to give them any information. All right. Any questions on that? No. Okay. If you admit to being Joe Bloggs and you admit that you were 6 miles an hour over the speed limit, you've just agreed to a contract with the police, even though that's not an offence under common law. And because you've just admitted to a contract, they can charge you. Okay. Similarly, if you were in court and the judge says, are you Ms. Allenson? If I say, yes, Your Honour, I've just contracted with them. Because under common law, there's no Ms, there's no Mrs, there's no Miss, there's no Mr. Who I really am is Shem of the family Allenson. I am not Ms. Shem Allenson. And I'll tell you more about that later. Okay. So you want to be careful not to create joinder. If they have you in a police cell as well, I believe you can also create joinder by accepting something from them, like a piece of paper, a pen, a glass of water. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that's what I've been told. So maybe you guys will know the answer to that. I'm not sure. Okay, so you don't want to create joinder. Green's just done that. Okay. Now consent. So let's have a look at consent next. So statutes, acts, codes and regulations that are created under statutory law, and remember these are created by lawyers and politicians, perhaps lawyers and politicians together. They're not created as a result of cases that are conducted in a proper court by a jury. These are just rules and regulations that are made up, and we are told that they apply to us. Okay. They are not laws. So if anybody in government or anywhere else tells you it's the law, sorry, it's not the law, and to call it law is fraud and misrepresentation. Okay, it's also malfeasance in public office. And you might even say it's criminal coercion, depending how they're using that sentence. They're trying to criminally coerce you into accepting the position of a legal fiction by threatening you. That's criminal coercion. Anything that comes under statutory law, otherwise known as maritime law or admiralty law, usually statutory law it's called, it's a legislative rule which is given the force of law by consent. And that word consent is really, really important. Without your consent, it does not apply. And they have to prove that you have given consent. Interestingly as well, you can withdraw your consent at any time. So if you say to them, well, I'm sorry, but I do not consent to that. I am removing my company from your register. I do not consent to further use of my legal fiction. I am now listed under the common law jurisdiction. They are obliged to abide by it. Okay. So some offences you might like to know about. So there are a number of offences that public officials can easily make when dealing with you that you might want to look up and find out a little bit more of. One is called malfeasance. Now, malfeasance in public office is wrongdoing by a public official. So that's malfeasance. Okay. There's also misfeasance. Now, misfeasance is doing a proper act in a wrongful or injurious manner. That occasionally applies. There's nonfeasance, and nonfeasance is failure to act under an obligation to do so. So a refusal without a sufficient excuse of doing what is their legal duty to do. Okay. And then criminal coercion is restricting unlawfully freedoms of another individual by threatening to commit a criminal offence. That's probably the most useful one, and it's the one that they're most likely to throw back at you. You will fill in this form, you will submit a tax return, or you will go to jail. Well, that's criminal coercion. They're not allowed to do it. If they do try to do that, you can hold them liable in their private capacity for criminal coercion. Okay. So when you're challenging government, and we'll talk more about this over the next couple of sessions, I can't fit everything in one talk because there's just too much, but hopefully I'm going to give you enough of a flavour of these things so you can actually start to read up on them. So foundation evidence is something that you should be asking people for all the time. So if somebody says you owe them money, be it a government department or the mortgage company, one of the things that you can be doing now is you can challenge them and you can say, okay, you say I owe you money. I would like to challenge you on the validity of the jurisdiction. So you can ask them to prove that you are within statutory jurisdiction. Of course, once you've moved into the common law jurisdiction and you've got the paperwork to prove it, they can then no longer prove that you're in statutory jurisdiction because you've got the paperwork that says otherwise. Okay. You can challenge them on the authority. That was actually my last letter to the Attorney Generals, was I challenged them on authority. I said, where do you get the authority to tell me what to do? Prove to me you have the authority to tell me what to do. Prove to me I consented to be governed. Okay. Permission to use your legal fiction. Now, again, once you sign up with the common law court and you get yourself your little common law court card, which is that one, okay. The next thing you want to do is you want to sign up to take ownership of your legal fiction. Now, your legal fiction is your strawman. Once you take ownership of your strawman, that becomes your property and not, the government are then not free to use it.
Really interesting what I'm listening to here.
Sorry, do you want to ask something? No, sorry. Okay.
I would. Can I ask you one thing very quickly?
Yeah, sure, Matt. Carry on.
Yeah, sure. Right, okay, so mortgage, for example, we've entered into a contract with them because, of course, you can't get a mortgage without signing very expansive papers during which you do give someone the authority to receive money from you and to chase that money from you. Whereas they've also, on their part of the contract, given you the money to buy a home. So breaking that contract surely would fall under the common law description of acting dishonorably, in my opinion. So I'd just like to ask you where you stand on that. Thank you.
Okay, right. All mortgages are unlawful, okay? And I'll tell you why. Within every mortgage, there are at least 5 levels of fraud. Okay? Yeah, amazing. 5. There's at least 5 levels of fraud. And I know this because I've had this straight from the horse's mouth from a government business analyst who's been dealing with the court cases to do with this. And the frauds there's a number of things which I'll briefly tell you because they're really quite interesting. That the first level of fraud is that when the original contract is signed, it is actually signed when neither you nor the mortgage company own the property. That in itself is unlawful. That's fraud number 1. Okay. For a contract to be lawful, it has to be signed by a living individual. And most mortgage contracts are signed by you, but they're not actually signed by another living individual representing the mortgage company. In fact, a lot of mortgage companies use a blanket signature, something like Andrew Brown, and they put the same signature on thousands and thousands of contracts, and it's not actually a living human being that resides within the mortgage company. So that's fraud number 2. The third thing that often happens is when they lend you the money, or you think they've lent you the money, they're actually not lending you their money. Now, I believe they either invent the money out of air, okay, or they actually take the money from your Strawman fund. Now, I'm not sure which it actually is, but in either case, it's not their money to then charge you 3.5 times the amount back on for lending you it. So there's another level of fraud, okay? There's at least a couple more. I'm just trying to think what the others are. Another one is the charges. Yeah, when they charge you sort of 3.5 times the amount back to pay back on it because it wasn't their money in the first place. Why should you give them 3.5 times the amount of the money back on money that's either been taken out of thin air or taken from your Strawman fund when it wasn't theirs in the first place? Why are we paying that money back? That's completely fraudulent, okay? And the other thing I think that sometimes happens is they do securitizations on mortgages. And I think it was you, Richard, that said to me that securitizations are where they parcel up a bundle of mortgages together and trade them on the stock market. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. So it's called the collateralized debt obligations. They get
so I believe that's unlawful as well. So there are so many steps within a typical mortgage that make.
Yeah, Shem.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. When they on the line, the other living person, they put a little X and they say you sign there and you sign there. That's them binding the contract. That's their mark. Just by putting the X.
Yeah, well, the person who's done that is not actually a member of a mortgage company.
Yeah, it's complete fraud. Yeah.
It is complete fraud. It is complete fraud. Yeah.
That's a very good answer. Thank you very much indeed.
Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've not known anyone who's challenged the mortgage actually not managed to get it successfully wiped. So it actually took me 2 letters and a quick chat to John Smith at Common Law Court, and I had it lawfully wiped. Okay. Saying that, though, the mortgage company will still try it on, even though they don't own the property. They'll still try it on, and they'll still try sending you letters. You just ignore them all. And then what I did was, when they started sending me letters back, I just did the honourable thing and just wrote back to them and said, look, I'm prepared to prove that I owe this money if you will send to me the following information, prove the contract is valid, send me a copy of the signed contract, and so forth. Never heard from them again. Okay, because they know it's fraudulent. Okay. So there's so many things that you can challenge these people on. It's once you understand how easy it is to challenge them, it's easy to do it. Now, something else you can use, as well as the ones on the previous page, which was authority, jurisdiction, contract, consent, and a valid invoice. You can also actually throw a law at them, an actual law. And there was a ruling by a common law court on the 31st of August 2019 that confirms that statutes acts do not apply to living men and women. So you can actually throw that at them as well. Okay, that's a good get out clause if ever there was one. But proven in a court of law. And I believe they proved that in a court of law because the Queen was not lawfully crowned. I could tell you, I could spend an hour talking to you about why the Queen was not lawfully crowned. But that's another one that you can actually use. Now, in challenging people, what you want to do, or what I've done, and I've found successful in every single case, is using this conditional acceptance that I think somebody else said they'd tried to use. Of course, this assumes that the people on the receiving end are not going to kidnap you and beat you up. So I write, in my letters, what I've been doing is I've been writing something along these lines. If you believe I owe you money, please provide the following foundation evidence. Provide evidence of jurisdiction, authority, contract, and a valid invoice. Okay. I have introduced myself as a living woman and provided my evidence that I am actually a living woman standing under the jurisdiction of common law court, and therefore they don't have jurisdiction. Okay. Should your claim be valid, then of course I will be happy to pay you. Okay. If you say you are happy to pay, if the evidence is provided, you cannot be taken to court. You can only be taken to court if someone has proven that you owe the money and you refuse to pay it. So what we're doing is we're not playing in their pen. If you are unable to provide the evidence I have requested, this is your tacit agreement that I owe you nothing. I like that phrase, it's great. Okay, because in law, if somebody asks you to prove something and you don't, you're agreeing with them. Okay. By the way, we will be sending to everybody at the end of this. What the sound quality will be like, I don't know. We had a few cutouts in the last one, but hopefully you will get sufficient out of it to.
Shem, is it possible that we can take the documentation? I'm actually trying to type all this while you're talking, and I'm losing little bits of what you're saying because I'm typing. Certainly,
I'm very happy to provide you all with a PDF copy if you want.
Thank you very much.
I should probably have said that first, guys, before you all started writing mountains of.
Well, I research everything that I see like this. I then research to death because some people. I certainly don't think it's the case here, but some people speak beyond their knowledge, and some people poke at the right things and then go the wrong way. So I always, after I read something like this, everything goes into the machine,
really?
And it is crunched.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's actually what you should do. Don't take my word for it. Investigate it for yourself. What I would say is, if you're looking up anything to do with law, please ignore websites like Wikipedia, BBC News, and so on. Because if you go to the mainstream media sites, you will not get accurate information. In fact, on Telegram, when we were discussing this the other day, somebody pointed me to something on, I think it was a business website. And whoever had written it had absolutely no idea whatsoever because they'd mixed up lawful and legal. And their conclusion was that statutory always trumps common law. So I did reply in the comments section below and said, you know, whoever wrote that really should do some reading because it is actually completely wrong. So most of what I'm telling you has actually come straight from the mouth of John Smith, who is the advocate, or Courtney Heading, who's got years of experience dealing with this kind of thing, and other people who've actually worked within common law. I also regularly read the work and listen to the work of people like Romney Stewart, Bill Turner, John Harris, people who have tried and tested these things in a court of law and who have dealt successfully with this kind of thing. I do hope to, by the way, put together for you a list of places to look for further info. right in time. It's just sort of getting all the information together. It takes quite a bit of time to do it, and also putting it in a format that everybody can then take away and digest. But if there's anything at all, guys, you don't understand, please feel free just to come back to me, and I'll be very happy just to try and elaborate on it or find out a bit more information for you. Now, in law, if somebody says something to you and it's clearly not right, it is important to rebut it in writing, otherwise it can be assumed to be true. Okay, and this is why when you talk the thing to say, I do not answer questions immediately, rather than get into an arguing match with them and then say, I do not answer questions. Because if you get into an arguing match with them, they're going to hold you away by the collar. Okay. Legalese. This is a lovely one. I love legalese, not. Now, legalese is a specialized or technical term of the legal profession, and it is designed by its very nature to entrap you. They do it deliberately, and it's something that only the legal professionals really understand. And they do that deliberately so that you are forced to use them when you're dealing with contracts. And not only are you forced to use them, but you are forced to play by their rules, because you look at these things and you don't understand what you're reading. So if you like, by using legalese, they are actually forcing you to use solicitors, lawyers, to deal with everything that actually you ought to be able to understand yourself. So it makes you feel stupid, and you think you've got to go and deal with it in a statutory court. It's completely awful. You know, how they get away with this, I don't know, but it's obviously been going on for years and years. Okay. Now, when you're dealing with legalese, there's a few things just to be careful of that are pitfalls. A few I would write down are the word person. Write down the word person, because when you see the word person written in a letter, it will say something like, you are the person, or the person that owes this. You are not a person. Okay, that is entrapment. The word person actually refers to several things and can also refer to a corporation. The strawman is a corporation. About a person, they don't necessarily mean you. Similarly, with the word citizen, you don't want to identify with being a citizen, because that also is entrapment within statutory jurisdiction. And even the word you. So if you get a letter from the TV licensing saying, dear occupier, you owe money, the fact that it's addressed to occupier, you are not anyone called occupier. You can throw that straight in the bin. Okay? You is not necessarily you. Okay? In fact, TV licensing is just laughable when they send out these dear occupier letters. Mine goes straight in the bin. They never even get they'll never even get my address. The first thing they want to do is they want to try and persuade you to contract. So you panic and you write back and you give them your name. Well, that's something that you should never do. You don't want to give them your name, believe me. So just if it says dear occupier, just throw it straight in the bin. They're trying to persuade you into contracting. Okay. Police officers and police constables. This is quite interesting, and I've deliberately brought this one up because most people today still believe that a police officer is the same as the old-fashioned police constable, and actually it isn't. This is going to surprise you. Police constables, the old police constables that we used to have, their duties were peacekeeping, and they worked for the people, and they had historic duties that go back centuries, and they were pretty much in charge of their own day-to-day activities, and they weren't responsible to this large corporation. Now, today's police officers are a completely different breed, and police officers are employed either directly or indirectly by the Crown Corporation. They work for a private for-profit corporation, and you can look the private for-profit corporations up, if you like, under Dun and Bradstreet, I believe it is. They are essentially, today's police officers are essentially revenue collectors. They are citizens in uniform, and they have no special powers unless you contract with them. Okay. They rely on fear and force of law, not common law. And they aim to create joinder to enforce hidden contracts and agendas. So actually, today's police officers have no more authority over you than a manager in McDonald's. Yeah. Okay. They're going to try their best to get joinder. Police officers and police constables have both, by the way, sworn to uphold common law, and therefore should uphold common law, and if they don't, they're breaking their oaths. And if they're trying to use criminal coercion, then they are as liable to, they're just as liable as you for using criminal coercion. They have no right to use criminal coercion against you. And this is why it's always useful, if you have an encounter with the police, to try and record it. I have to say that is easier in the UK than in the US, because I think traditionally in the UK, I think our police are better behaved, I have to say, from my observations. Okay. Now, just out of interest, I brought up on screen, it was the only one I could get hold of, was a police officer's oath of, form of oath, because I wanted to see who they're actually swearing to. And this was quite interesting, because police officers are swearing a constable's oath. That in its own right is unlawful. And it says, I, such and such of, do swear by Almighty God that I will well and truly serve the Crown. Yeah, the Crown is the Crown Corporation. They shouldn't be serving the Crown first and foremost, they should be serving you, the people. So that in itself is abhorrent. Okay. People think the Crown is the Queen and is therefore the people, but it's not. The Crown is the Crown Corporation, the London Corporation. So they're not serving you at all. And right further down at the bottom, we have got, and I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and preserved, prevent the commission of offences against people and property, and apprehend offenders against the public peace. And that while I continue to hold the said office, I will, to the best of my skills and knowledge, discharge all my duties, therefore faithfully according to law, etc. Okay. So I think they should be rewritten personally, because it doesn't say that you're there to uphold common law and protect the people. And that's what I think the police officers actually should say. Anyway.
Yeah, and if I may, once again, I think it's really interesting that they have both human and people, because from what I've researched, human is not necessarily what you want to be either. So human rights could be different. You know, the people are separated from the humans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As another version of entrapment. Yes, I gather so. Yeah. Okay. How are we doing time-wise, Richard? Are we right? We've got to get on to some questions shortly. So, who are the common law court? The common law court, actually, you guys, you and me, we are all the common law court, and we can hold a court anytime we like. 15 of us can get together to hold a common law court, and once you have the appropriate paperwork and you know how to do it, we now have common law courts in 108 countries around the world, and we have hundreds of thousands of people, and we are growing by hundreds every single day, because people have had enough. They want to take back their sovereignty, and they've really had enough of being fleeced of every penny, and they've had enough of not knowing where that money that they're paying is going. And I can tell you with all, you know, every bone in my body tells me that the money that we've been paying over the years does not go where it's supposed to go. So I've still got people beeping to come in here. Our money goes to pay for the murder of people in other countries. Our money is going on slave trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, paedophilia. It is going towards the destruction of the Congo to make our iPhones. It is going towards the mass medication of human beings. We need to take back our sovereignty, and we need more transparency about where our money goes and what it's being used for. Because without that, nobody, I think, now can have a clear conscience about what is happening to that money. Okay. Oops, my screen's gone odd again. Now, if you want some reading, I can thoroughly recommend these 3 books to get you started on what the common law is, how to conduct a common law court and so forth, and a little bit about your strawman. I'll be giving you some more books in following sessions, but these 3 books are quite interesting. They're really little ones. They're not heavy reading, and they're nicely written. So there's the Common Law Handbook, and that applies everywhere. There's the Common Law Training Manual, and there's the Meet Your Strawman. So those are worth having, worth putting on your bookshelf. I don't think they're expensive. I don't think they're more than about £8 each, something like that. They're not expensive booklets, so well worth getting. Common Law Court Great Britain and International started off as being Common Law Court Scotland, and then it encompassed Great Britain, and now it's worldwide. The aim of the Common Law Court really is to protect you, the people, and to protect the children of the future. We aim to work with police enforcement agencies, and we aim to promote health, happiness, lifelong learning, and protect the planet. So in other words, to summarise it, we want common law to reflect the wishes of the people rather than the desires of politicians, governments, big tech and big pharma, or the global elite, who will fleece you of every last penny you have got. Okay, how do you do it? If you want to join up with Common Law Court, I would urge you to start here. There is, to you go to the Common Law Court website, start by listing your birth. I don't say register your birth. I don't like to use the word register, because the word register actually means a gift to the Crown. So when you register your land, and you register your car, and you register your kid, the word register means gift to the Crown. So if you've registered your child's birth, you've given your child to the Crown. If you register your car, you've given it to the Crown, and that's why you can be charged car tax and road tax. If you register your land, you've given them your land, and that's why you can be charged stamp duty, and so on. Okay? So you're listing them, you're not registering them. So start by going to the Common Law Court website, list yourself and your kids on there. I would do them all one at a time and follow through the process for each one, otherwise I think you'll get confused. So in the order that you've got to do it, list your birth, you'll get an email back, then take ownership of your legal fiction, you'll get an email back, and then you can do things like register a business, that kind of thing.
Can I just say, and I didn't get anything back.
How long ago did you do that?
About 3 weeks ago.
Have you checked in your junk mail folder? Obvious question.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have another look, because I've got, yeah, I'll have another look. But can you contact them by phone or anything? Or
if you're still struggling, if you contact me, just drop me an email, and
okay.
I will look into it for you and chase it.
Yeah. And if you've got a partner who probably isn't so keen.
Well, you can still list the kids. You can still list all the kids, and I would list all the kids if I were you, even if your partner's not keen, because as mother or father, you can list your kids. The reason I would say it's so important to list the kids is because then nobody can enforce mandatory vaccinations or medical treatment on them.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. The reason that medical treatments and mandatory vaccinations can be enforced on children is because those children are the property of the state.
Yeah.
Okay. Once those children are no longer the property of the state and they are listed under common law, they actually become your property. Okay. Sounds very straightforward, but it's as simple as that. So that little court case recently, do you remember the parents lost custody of the child because they disagreed with the treatment? Well, actually, that's probably because the child was listed under statutory jurisdiction. And of course, once the child's been taken away, it's damn difficult to get them back again.
Okay. I have another question, but shall I leave it to the end, or?
We're nearly at the end, actually.
Yeah, I'll wait.
So if you work your way through all of that lot, guys, come back to me if you've got questions. We do have a little Telegram page if anybody wants to ask me questions, which I kind of throughout the day. It doesn't go to my phone. I threw my smartphone away. I would urge all of you to throw your smartphones away as well and get a cheap and cheerful pay-as-you-go instead, if you can possibly live like that, because If we pay money to big tech, big pharma, and we pay into these things, we are paying for our own destruction. We are paying to be tracked. Ask yourself, is that the kind of future you really want?
I'll just tell you right now that I've got inside knowledge of this, and you can be tracked just as easily with a button phone.
Really?
The difference is when you consent to it. Well, people who are downloading these apps for the coronavirus and things, they can already be tracked. You are just consenting to it legally by downloading the app. Tracking you is very, very easy.
Yeah, well, they won't be tracking me, Richard, because I try not to take my phone with me.
Well, I'm buying a little Faraday. You can buy Faraday pouches if you look on the Amazon. They are pouches with a fine metal coating on the inside. And you put your phone inside there, no one can ring you, but you can take your phone out at any point and use it. Turning your phone off does not stop you being tracked, because as long as there is residual battery in the lithium cell, it will power the chip to be tracked before it'll actually power the phone.
Yeah. See, they've got you at every turn, haven't they?
Yes, they have indeed.
Yeah. I mean, don't have things in your house like Alexa and that kind of thing either.
Oh my God.
There's nothing smart in my house. Nothing. I'm completely hardwired. I even had a 1 week battle with Manx Telecom to actually make sure my router had all the Wi-Fi settings turned off, because they just left the whole lot on. And when I went to check it, because I've actually got, I'll show you it. I've actually got a little Acousticom. I don't know if you can see that. I've got a little Acousticom 2 meter, and you can use that to go around your house and check the radiation levels. The radiation that the new router was giving out was absolutely unbelievable. It was the highest possible reading, and it was still reading really high in my bedroom. So I thought, no, enough is enough.
You can actually go and turn the what they call the radio station off inside your router if you go into the router's configuration.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to be able to do that, but apparently there was no settings and no way to do it on mine, so I actually had to get Manx Telecom to do it for me, but they have now done it.
Anyone who's interested in Wi-Fi networks, there's a thing called a de-author that you can pick up, which is pretty much Wi-Fi anarchy. If you go into a situation where you think that there's Wi-Fi traffic, it'll disconnect everyone from the Wi-Fi. It's they're funny little things to have. 20 quid.
Wow, what's it called again?
De-author, de-authenticator, de-author. They're 20 quid. You can get them from Amazon or eBay. And de-author. They are very small.
What's the point of having that? Sorry, so no one can.
It kills Wi-Fi completely. It stops anyone from being able to connect to it, and it means that you can't be tracked as you're walking past somewhere. Because one of the ways you can be tracked is by your phone connecting or handshaking with passing Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Oh, so is that for your phone then?
That's for your phone, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Anyway,
for the EMF coming out of your router, you can get a Faraday cage as well.
Yeah.
It still allows the signal through if you wanted that.
The trouble with all of those is I tried a whole load of different things with my router actually, and I tried a special cage, I've tried special fabrics. Believe it or not, I even tried 3 sheets of lead from the old lead flashing on my roof. The radiation got through all of them.
Well, a lot of technologies claim that 97% does not get through their ones. So, sorry, they're
lying.
They're lying.
According to my Acousticom 2, they're lying. Okay. The only way I could get it down to green everywhere in the house was just to stop the Wi-Fi completely. So yeah. I'm now completely hardwired. There's no smart anything in my house. Nothing smart at all. Just refuse to have it.
Okay.
Anyway, guys, moving on. My contact info is on the screen now. If you want to ask me anything about this, you're very welcome. Contact me on clc@commonlawcourt.com. I am on Telegram under no, my name is Nutrition and CLC Lady. What's the name of the group, Ella? Because I forgot to put the name of the group on there. What's the name of the group? Is it Common Law Court Group?
Britain and International.
Sorry, say that again, Ella.
We'll send like a little link to it.
I'll tell you what. We'll put the link on, and we'll send you the link because I can't hear you, Ella. So, yeah, we'll put the link on that. If any of you want a dietetic appointment and you wish to speak to a dietitian, of course, I've put my dietetic contacts there. I can chat to people on Facebook or Zoom as well, and I do have a nutrition website, so I've put those on there. Last thing, if you're willing to give a donation, I'd be very happy to receive one, only if you can afford it, because I'm under common law. No, I'm not under common law lockup, under COVID-19 lockup. I thought I was under common law lockup then. I am actually under common law lockup, aren't I? Okay. Right, so anyone, would you like to ask me any questions?
Let's put the slide back.
Yeah. Can I ask? Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. I'm just struggling with my screen at the moment.
Okay. Just like I'm very new to this, and so from my perception of it, straight away you talk about court cases, you talk about not paying mortgage, not paying certain things. From an outsider's point of view, who wasn't involved in this, they'd think, why are you shirking all these things? You know, why, and do you agree to pay for anything? What are you agreeing to pay for, and what are you not agreeing to pay for?
Right. I'm actually not paying any of my taxes. And the reason I'm not paying any of my taxes is because I know, having spoken to the guys on the finance side, that more than half, possibly as much as 3/4 of the money that we pay does not go for the services that we think we are paying for. We have actually all paid for those services many times over. When we're putting money into this, we are feeding the beast. We are feeding the murder of people in other countries. We are feeding slave trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking. We are feeding white collar crime. We're feeding banking crime. We're feeding mortgage fraud.
Yeah.
We are feeding the crimes whereby people are thrown out of their homes for actually doing nothing wrong.
Yeah. So do you agree to pay? Do you agree to pay any of that? Like, I know somebody pays for sewage, but not for the water, for example. Do you?
I don't pay for any of it because I know that I've paid for it many times over already.
Right. So then, therefore, when you contract with other people, you're like, if you had your gym or you're paying for your.
Well, that's completely different. I pay those things as normal.
Right. And you still keep your person for that, or do you use your?
Oh, do you mean am I still under common law? Yes. Under common law, you can do whatever you want to do.
But when you sign up, do you have to make sure that you sign up with your? Because I've signed up for lots of different things over the years. Is that evidence that do you have to go back and get rid of all that?
No, you don't, because the good thing about statutory jurisdiction is you can use your legal fiction as and when you want to.
Okay.
Okay, so if you've signed up to things as Ms. or Mrs. or Mr., that's absolutely fine. That's not a problem. Okay, so what you should perhaps be doing is just signing out of everything government.
Okay. And is that a short list? Because you mentioned mortgage as well.
I've signed out of income tax, council tax rates, company tax, action, company registration. I've taken myself off the voting register. What have I missed? Anything government. I've taken myself off anything government.
Okay.
That's a very interesting thing to say as well about the voting register. So I was thinking about the implications of what you said before. Presumably not consenting to be governed in that respect also removes your right to choose who's governing you or not governing you.
The other thing about the voting register is nobody's confirmed this, Matt, but I believe if you're on the voting register, it gives them your power of attorney if you die, which I think means if you die without leaving a will, they can take ownership of all your property and your possessions.
We know that. Yeah.
I know that's true, yes.
Yeah.
Also,
there may well be some other things as well. So by taking your name off the voting register, I think you're withdrawing your consent to be governed. That's the hardest one to get off, actually. You would think it would be the easiest, but it's the hardest one. That took me nearly 15 letters.
Wow.
Yeah, and I had to go back and forward and back and forward and challenge everything. I even ended up, the boss of the department, I even ended up saying to him, you know, every extra day you keep my name on the register, I'm going to be charging you £500.
So,
yeah.
Can I assume then that this participation in the electoral register is a prerequisite for getting a mortgage for that very reason?
I don't think that the electoral register's got anything to do with getting a mortgage, actually.
Oh, okay. You won't pass a credit check if you haven't got if you're not part of the electoral register. Passing a credit check is necessary to get a mortgage.
The one thing I will say about this, Matt, now is whether there will be any mortgages in the future, I seriously doubt, because if you're not aware of it, have you heard of the Great British Mortgage Swindle?
No, I haven't actually.
Have a read up of the Great British Mortgage Swindle, because all those cases are going through, and they've been through and they're still going through. I think when all that is done and dusted, I think the mortgage industry will be pretty much dead. And if it's reinvented, it will be reinvented in another form, because the mortgage industry is completely fraudulent, and they've pretty much shown that virtually every mortgage is unlawful. So,
okay.
yeah, so the chances of the mortgage industry continuing is probably a little bit remote.
Anyone who's thinking that it sounds dishonourable to stop paying for your mortgage should really think about what you said about where your money is, what your money is being used for. I object very strongly to just about recently of the cash that we give to the elite.
Absolutely, yeah. So back to Matt, what you were saying, Matt. The money does definitely, and the fact that they're taking this money from either your Strawman fund or inventing it out of thin air, and then charging and then giving you back 3.5 times as much, that money really isn't being used for your benefit. That money is funding all these unlawful things that are going on in the world. And unless we stop feeding the beast is going to get bigger, and the beast is going to get more control of us. So this is why we have to do it. Oh, very, very good. How did you get it to do that?
Doodling.
Thank you very much.
If I can say one more thing, I was doing some research about the accounts that you were talking about with the birth certificate, and whenever you, because the signature is different than an autograph, whenever you sign a debt instrument, the debt instrument is then deposited as money, because debt is now money. You supposedly have 14 days to reclaim it, and you don't know that. So they claim it as the bank claims it, and then so once you've signed it, you've paid for that thing. It's all paid for, like Shem was saying. And so you're not only they're taking your money, which you paid for, then like you said, then you're paying interest and you're paying payments. So they're actually getting you so many times. So I thought that was, I've also found that. And then the other thing was, in America at least, you have the Social Security card has some red numbers on the back of it. So it might be, as Shem was saying, that when you sign that debt instrument, money is printed from your account using your Social Security number in the United States, in America. Yeah, but that is, they are completely stealing your wealth, like you were saying. That's just some of the research that I came across. I just wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, you've just to look at Bill Gates, haven't you? I mean, Bill Gates has just bought a yacht. Was it 463 million? No, billion. Million? It's 463 million. I think his latest yacht was. You know, where's he got that money from? Well, he's got that money from injecting kids full of vaccines and causing untold damage in Africa and India to kids. And you know, the truth is, we're probably paying for it. You know?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Tom. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, old hippie. I'm probably anarchist. It's nice to hear lots of people talking about this. If anyone else is new to this, there is a YouTube example of a free man representing a person over council tax in Wales. I don't know if you're familiar with this, guy called Stephen Barry, and it's quite an interesting, it's filmed from his mates. It's obviously a setup. But in this, it's just interesting listening to you talking. You'll see that it's showing everything you're saying, but in actually, you know, in the field, as it were. If anyone's interested, you can just YouTube search it. I think I've put it on here, look, on the chat. And it's in 2 parts, and it just echoes everything you're saying, you know, at the end of, you know, and it's a very nice, you know, it's pretty shitty, the actual filming, but as it goes through, there's a nice commentary on it, and at the end it lists all the things, all that the court do that are breaking the law. But it's exactly as you say. Historically, when we talked about this 25 years ago, we were always isolated and on our own, and whenever we're isolated on our own, we get on the wrong end of the stick. And to see lots of people actually showing an interest and actually, you know, following through on this, the more of us that do it, the more chance there is that we won't be ignored. It won't be so easy to throw us in a cell. So yeah, that was all I was going to say.
I have to say, having done this process myself of signing out of everything government, it's given me a lot more confidence now, and I really do understand it a lot better when you go through that process of writing all the letters, and when you know how to write the letters and how to word it so as not to trap yourself. It gives you a lot more confidence, and it's good for you, actually. And I think if a lot of us do this, then the future is going to be a lot rosier, because we can demand greater accountability. The problem at the moment is there's no accountability, there's no transparency. We don't know what money's been spent on. We don't really know what they're doing with it. And actually, the people who are in authority are actually bullying us to take more and more offers.
Okay, I think we're probably just about to wrap up there. I'd just like to thank Shem for her time and skill and her expertise.
My pleasure.
By which she sort of shared quite complex concepts with us, and just sort of enlightened us as to how we can take further control of our lives and the lives of our families.
And also to remind that Shem is going to have other meetings going deeper into common law subjects. So this is like a first one overview. And obviously,
you can chat as you go.
We arranged the outline and the times and everything. So just watch your emails and you will get updates.
Yeah, so we're talking about 6 or 7 sessions similar to this in terms of timings, 1.5 hours or so. Just make sure that you are on the email list. So I think it's ella.eg@pm for mother.me. Okay, and you'll get notified about those further sessions. We'll also send you a link to this video because this session is actually being recorded itself. Okay, but thank you so much for tuning in or listening in.
Could I just ask, Richard, sorry, if we wanted to share this video with friends, would they be able to be invited to the next session because they've watched this?
Yes,
they will be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Just ask to send email, because obviously all information will go through email, so it's easier that way for me.
Yeah, sure.
And then also, if sorry, go ahead. Sorry. If I may then, Shem, are you going to be going over how to write the letters and everything then?
I am.
Yes.
Oh, you're amazing.
Yes, the next session I want to do things like Magna Carta, unalienable rights, the Nuremberg Code, the history of Strawman and legal fiction, and a bit more about consent and history of taxes, requirements of a contract. So I plan to do that next, and the reason I plan to do that next is I think you need that foundation before you can then go on to write the letters. And then in the third session I plan to talk to you about how I've done the letters and the sort of things that you will write to challenge jurisdiction, authority, consent, contract, the use of your legal fiction, the unlawful use of your data, that kind of thing.
Is it worth us registering them before?
Oh yes. I would say yes.
You can start getting things going, yeah.
I would say get things going, but do them one at a time, guys. So take one person, list the birth, wait for the reply, take ownership of their legal fiction, wait for the reply, order the paperwork. And if you do that, then you're not going to get confused, because I'm finding that where people have got a gaggle of kids and they've tried to do them all at once, they've got confused with birth certificate numbers and things like that. I think it's easier if you actually just do one person at a time. And if you get stuck with the process, just come back to me. Or if you make a mistake with the process, just come back to me and I can try and get it corrected for you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
But don't register kids that are not yours.
Say something for the
Yeah, don't register kids that are not yours.
I haven't received an email for mine either, but I logged in on the Common Law Court site, and when I actually went online and searched, it actually was registered. So people may just want to double check that, because even though I haven't received an email yet, it is definitely listed on there, so it might just be worth checking.
Yeah. Remember as well, when you list it, it doesn't necessarily give you the paper copies. If you want the paper copies, I think you've actually to go to the shop and order the paper copies.
Yes, I did that as well. So
yeah, and it's worth ordering the paper copies, because then you can include photocopies with your letters actually proving that you are within the common law jurisdiction, that you do own your legal fiction and so forth.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Shem, for your time.
Pleasure.
But we'll do the next one next week. Everybody that's here, as long as we've got your email, we'll receive an email with a link to the recording of this one and also the time and date of the next session. But thank you so much.
I'll also include a PDF, Richard, of the slides. And then if anybody wants to, they can just go back and have a browse through the PDF without having, you know, if they can't read their own handwriting. My handwriting's abysmal, so if I'd written notes, you wouldn't be able to read it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for attending.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.